Welcome to Inside College Admission, conversations with admission leaders about matters affecting the college-going process. My name is Peter Van Buskirk, and I'm joined today by John Young, who is the Vice President and Dean of Admission at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. John, welcome. How are you doing?
We're doing well, or as well as anybody can under the current circumstances.
Well, the circumstances are absolutely unique. I mean, reflecting on my time with college admission, this is precisely that moment in time on the calendar when, as an admission officer, you look forward to early April because the kids you've been working to admit have been admitted. You want to get them to campus, you want to hug them and show them some love, and then of course then you've got thousands of other young people who are getting ready for next year. Not happening that way right now, is it?
Not at all, and it is. It's that that famous T.S. Eliot quote, "April is the cruelest month," is ringing in my head right now. Where normally it's my favorite month. It's the time where we roll out the red carpet and we have hundreds of students visiting our campus and interacting with our staff and faculty and students. And in the Northeast, it's when the weather gets great and all of our spring sports are going great guns. But obviously, we've had to pivot in an entirely different direction.
Well, surely April can be the cruelest month, but I don't know that I've ever seen a harsher March.
That's right. And it's, to me, what's kind of interesting is it is showing that college students and high school students, I think, have a whole lot more resilience and resourcefulness than we might have given them credit for.
Well, sure. I think we've all in the educational endeavor had to kind of make adjustments on the move here. It's not like we could stop for 6 months and then develop a new paradigm for reaching out to these kids. So I'm impressed by what the academic programs have done to be able to keep up with kids and keep them close to finishing the semester on time. Have you had much of an eye on that, or have you been focused more on getting your own team to the finish line?
Well, both. We every morning our senior staff gets together for a quick Zoom call, and obviously the first thing we had to do was transfer the academic platform to something that is an entirely in-person enterprise at Hobart and William Smith to an entirely remote enterprise, and do it on a dime. We made the decision that we're going to make this switch. The Friday our students were leaving for spring break, and most of our faculty plan on taking a spring break as well, but that all changed. They had to spend that whole week of break figuring out how to turn their classes into remote classes, and they've been tremendously successful. And now we're 2 weeks into this, and I've been really impressed. The feedback I'm getting from students is obviously it's not the same as being here. I think they are really looking forward to hopefully the fall being business as usual. But at this point, I think they've really rallied around it. So have our faculty, to figuring out how can we deliver the academic enterprise this way.
Wow. Now, I could be wrong, but I think there was some real disappointment on your campus too early in March when the NCAA tournament was canceled.
Yeah, our men's basketball team was in the Sweet 16, and they were actually in Virginia getting ready to play the game that hopefully would have sent them to the Elite Eight, and that got taken out from right underneath them. At the same time, our women's lacrosse team was nationally ranked. Our men's lacrosse team was having a fantastic season and was moving into league play. We had a couple of players there who were going to set some school records at the same time. So it's been a big change. The tennis teams were ready for great seasons. The golf teams, it's been a weird one. The men's ice hockey team was selected to play in the tournament. That season's all changed.
But when you can imagine the excitement on any college or university campus around just one of those teams
Right.
finding success, but to have it all coming together as you just described in March, and then to have it just kind of go poof, to disappear. Is your campus a ghost town now?
It is. We have about 100, just over 100 students on our campus. Most of them are students who are either international students. It doesn't make sense. They're better off here
Sure.
than they are someplace else. But people are really obeying I think a lot of the regulations that have been put in place and recommendations around social distancing. So if I were to walk across our campus today, I don't know that I'd see that many people. It's pretty quiet place. Yet their students are still going to the dining hall to get lunch, to get dinner. So the operation's still continuing, but it's certainly not the same as a normal day in April would be.
Wow. Well, as you and your team are working with the students who've just emerged from the admission process, the accepted kids, the kids you'd really like to have joining you in the fall, what are the biggest pandemic-related challenges that you've been facing and continue to face as you proceed with the enrollment of that class of 2024?
I really look at it in two ways. One is sort of what we talked about. It's how do you try to translate an experience that at a school like Hobart and William Smith, that is a very person-driven enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
The visits in April, I think, help hundreds of students figure out that this is the right place for them. And since that's not going to be possible, how do we figure out how to do that virtually in a way that still shows the character and the personality of the place. So we've done some, I think, really incredible things over Zoom. We've offered different programs where people can ask questions and get to know the people that they'd be working with if they chose to come to Hobart and William Smith. And we're going to continue to do that. It's happening every day here. Our staff is working remotely, so they are on the phone morning, noon, and night, really talking to students, and they do that normally, really from the office. But I think what we've had to ask them is what can we do? What are the hurdles they need to get over? Who are the people they need to interact with to try to figure out how we can deliver that to them in a different way than we normally have. So that's one thing we're dealing with. The other thing, though, that might be even more relevant for a lot of students is the emotional toll this is all taking on seniors in high school. And I'm seeing it because I've got one at home right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Lucky me. And I think it's really hard for a couple different reasons. Look, this is a big worldwide issue, and let's not forget that, right? I think sometimes people feel as though when we start talking about sports seasons that have been canceled and proms that may not happen, I think there are some people who feel like you're missing the bigger picture when you focus on that. Yet at the same time, for these students, that could be a really important thing in their lives, and to ignore that, I think, is really naive. And not giving them enough credit. It's not that these students don't see the world issue and understand why all that happened. That doesn't mean it can't hit them emotionally and impact the choices that they make moving forward.
Well, this passage from high school to college is a passage into adulthood, is a passage into independent living. It's one of the most important rites of life that we experience as we grow older. And so to your point, it's got to be very, very difficult for a 17, 18-year-old to make sense of all of this right now.
That's right. And I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge that and not just, move on too quickly. I think we have to give them that moment to talk about the things that are important to them and what they might be missing. And just maybe, I think for a lot of families, normally the month of April helps to make that transition from high school to college a little easier, because everybody's seeing where they'd end up going, they're visiting campuses, they're talking with the people. As a parent, here's who I'm giving my kid over to, here's who I'm going to trust to take care of them over the next 4 years. And to not be able to do that in person can make it hard for parents too.
Absolutely. Well, I would imagine from a planning point of view, you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. Having done this many years ago myself, I remember that we would model this, model that, yield.
Right.
Basically, we're looking at factors from years past and experiences from years past to shape those models. What reliability do your models have now? And I know that Hobart's really been a model-based school.
Yeah, no kidding. And I get asked that question every day. What's the model telling us? What the model tells us isn't real. There's no question about it. We don't have a regression point for pandemic in our enrollment model, and in fact, there are factors in our enrollment model that won't be there now. So, what's a perfect example? Campus visits is one of the factors in our enrollment model. We know that students who visit campus in the month of April are much more likely to enroll than those who do not. Well, they're not going to be able to. So how do we adapt to that and get some prediction out there that's reasonable? I'm not quite sure, and I don't know that I would. I don't know that it's worth a ton of effort trying to figure that out. What we have to do is pay attention to what we know and pay attention to conversations and what students are telling us, and that's going to give us the best information we can get.
You run a wait list?
Absolutely. We've always put, I think, been pretty reasonable and had a wait list when we have an entering class of about 600 students and an applicant pool between 3,000 and 4,000. We've always had a wait list of around 300 students, and this year it looks pretty similar. And I think the real question is how much are we going to need that and be able to use that and when. From my point of view, it's more important than ever for us to keep those students close to us and make sure they understand that we always like using the waiting list. We don't take pride in not doing it. It really helps us round out a class. And this year it might be more important than ever.
Well, I mean, good heavens, you've got families who are watching the news daily and looking at forecasts about when things will change and things will go back to normal. I would imagine it's kind of hard from your vantage point to know how to pin people down. I mean, are you sticking with the May 1 enrollment deadline? Are you providing some flexibility on that?
We've stayed with it as an announcement of May 1, but any family who requests an extension, we'll give it to them. We don't, the point isn't to be difficult here. On the other hand, we like getting going right after May 1 in terms of getting students in their courses and putting them in housing, matching them up with roommates. And when we stall that, it puts pressure on the process on the backside to get it all done and accomplished. So we're hopeful that people can live with a May 1 deadline, but we know for certain families that's just not going to be realistic. And let's be flexible that way.
And that whole early registration process, which makes sense, is now highly speculative.
That's right.
And it makes it even more difficult. I would imagine also that you're starting to hear from families about that cost. Gosh, I mean, the Hobart's a great school, and when we applied, it didn't, we felt we could manage this out of pocket, but that's changed. I mean, and frankly, the need analysis that's used to justify need-based financial aid is based on a family's income assets from 2018. Things have changed a little bit in 2 years, maybe in the last 2 weeks. So how are you anticipating these conversations? Because among the students you've admitted, there'll be students who need financial aid because they demonstrated it, and there are going to be students who weren't even on your radar screen who are going to show up. Can you accommodate them, or what's going to happen?
Yeah, there's another place where I think we have to ask lots of questions and listen really carefully. We very quickly, after we sent out our admissions decisions, set up half an hour time blocks for any family to have a individual conversation with a member of our financial aid staff. They filled up really quickly, so we've had to send out another email and offer more options for families to have those conversations. Sometimes it is there even people who have done everything right and they've got that 529 plan all set and ready to go have watched the value of that 529 plan go down over the last couple of weeks. And what does that mean about our ability to pay what colleges are asking us to pay? So we've got to be really thoughtful and also really empathetic to families as they're going through this, and understand that even somebody who might say yes and send that deposit in on May 1, come July, might be in a different financial circumstance, and we're going to have to be nimble and flexible with that. So we're fully anticipating that the appeals process for financial aid will be much more vigorous this year, and we've got to make sure that we can help families as best we can.
Even before the coronavirus crisis, the Department of Justice kind of started to meddle with the way we colleges and universities have done business with pricing and financial aid, et cetera. And now, because of some of the DOJ actions, families will feel more licensed to go get a better offer somewhere. So I'm just imagining that mechanism on top of the health crisis means that there are families that will feel like, okay, now it's open season. I've got my Hobart offer, but I'm going to go check it out and see if I can get a better offer somewhere else. Some people have regarded that as sort of a Wild West approach to college admission with financial aid. Is that overblown?
That's a good question. Look, I thought this year was going to be crazy enough before COVID-19 hit, just with all those Department of Justice changes. What's it going to be like with this now layered on top of it? Let's just do it all in 1 year. Why not? And what's it going to mean for projecting anything in the future? Who knows? But from my point of view, we haven't felt a ton of pressure on that front yet. But I don't want to be naive and think that it won't come. Especially as colleges get to that May 1 point and they don't have the class that they want. There's nothing now that prevents them from going out and making different offers to students that they admitted. Hey, we know you didn't choose us by May 1, but boy, here's some more financial aid. Might you want to choose us now? Might we have families who come back at us and say, hey, look, I just got a better offer. What does it mean? And as an institution, you've got to be prepared to react to that. I don't know that I want to be held hostage by that.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to encourage that behavior, right? That to me, right or wrong, commoditizes this process in a way that doesn't make me really comfortable. I want people to be choosing a college that makes sense for them and that their family can afford. And if you can afford it, and you recognize the value in it, hopefully that will take care of things. And I think as an institution, that's really where we have to focus our energy, is making sure people understand the value of the place and why it costs what it is and why it does. And if you can afford it, here's why you should be willing to pay that.
It's always been a tough conversation because people bring their own value sets and priorities into that conversation, and sometimes they have blinders to some of the realities that you try to convey. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you. I need it.
As you're working with the next 6 weeks, really trying to lock up this class, got kids who want to come to campus, kids who want to have the Hobart experience, etc. Can you give us a little bit more sense of how, what you're rolling out for them right now as a contingency? I mean, you aren't able to do tours. You're not able to have the faculty meet with them and on campus, et cetera. So what does that experience look like for the admitted student now?
That's a good question. I think we're trying to figure out not only what can we do in a big picture way for all of our admitted students, but what might we need to do for some of the individual admitted students who have specific concerns or questions they want to address. So in a big picture way, what we've done is we call them, all of our meetings are on Thursdays. We have, in today's, we've got a huge slate of meetings that students can attend. So we have the experts from our residential education, our housing program. We have faculty who focus on advising. We have faculty who are thinking about pre-health, pre-law, pre-business, pre-education. We have families who are interested in learning more about our leadership programs. So we're doing Zoom meetings with all the people who run those programs on our campus, along with current students who are involved in them. So virtually, people can learn about all these programs. And the way we're kind of looking at this is, let's design all these as good ideas, whether we're open for business or not. Let's behave in a way that says all these things would be smart to do, even if they could visit in April. Then I think where things are really important is every member of our staff is calling every student that we've admitted and asking them what do they need. Because for some students, it could be a very specific concern that they have that we might not think to cover in a big picture Zoom meeting that would be relevant to all the students that we've admitted. But for this one student, they're really concerned about their ability to navigate the dining hall because they have a food allergy.
Hmm.
Let's make sure we can connect them with somebody in our dining services to answer those questions. For this student, though, they've got a very specific concern about research opportunities in the chemistry department. Let's connect that student with a faculty member in chemistry. So we're asking those questions. And sometimes, quite frankly, students don't know the answer to that, right? They're not really sure what it is. But if we can have a little conversation with people and ask about it thoughtfully, usually we'll come up with something that can help them.
Smart move. I mean, the best part of communication is in the listening. So
That's right.
I think you're doing a great job there. Has there been much conversation on your campus about when you might be opening the place up physically to the public again? Or is that, let's just wait and see?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time for a bunch of different reasons. We're trying to figure out. We've decided to push off graduation. It was supposed to be the middle of May, and we want this class to obviously have that moment to celebrate. So when could we do that? And then when can we return to normal, so to speak, campus visitors, especially for the juniors who are starting their search process and want to kick the tires a little bit. We know we're going to be closed through May, but we're hopeful that we can start to return to normal shortly thereafter. But in the state of New York, where we're located, we're in some ways blessed in our location that we're in upstate New York in a town of 13,000 people on a campus that basically allows our students to spread themselves out pretty well. So knock on wood, we haven't been hit as hard as some of the other areas in New York have. So we're hopeful that by putting all the measures in place that New York State has ahead of time, we might mitigate some of the way this impacts our community, and then hopefully can return to normal as quickly as we can. But want to pay a lot of attention to what everybody's saying in our state government to make sure we're doing the right things.
Absolutely. As you move forward, though, and you talked about the juniors who are eager to kick the tires and get started, memory serves me correctly that it's not too far into the future when admission staffs begin to look at the next 6 months and plan fall schedules of visiting high schools and attending college fairs, maybe hosting open houses, things that may be in jeopardy right now due to the coronavirus. How is your team thinking about, or have you begun to think about what you're going to do to reach out to next year's applicants?
Yeah, it's interesting. As you know, there's a process called student search where you can figure out if there are students who are likely going to be interested in your institution and work with different organizations to get those students' names and email addresses and communicate with those students. And normally what you're doing is you're getting those names and you're sending them invitations to come to visit campus over the summer and for open houses in the fall, and getting excited to let them know about that you'll be visiting their high school at some point. All the different opportunities we have to interact with students, we're usually pushing that out to juniors at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Since we can't do that because we don't know when those things are going to happen again, while the staff is certainly planning for the fall as if things will be back to normal starts in September, that may not be the case. So you can put plans in place, but you really can't execute them right now. What we're deciding to do as a way to react to that is come up with a pretty aggressive email communication and getting some more names than we would normally get from some of those organizations to try to bulk up the number of students that have interest in Hobart and William Smith, so that when things do get back to normal, we can get people to campus and get them to see it in a way that they haven't had a chance yet.
So we talk about the funnel in college admission. You're focusing at the top of the funnel, trying to make sure that
Right.
that you get the right number of students into the conversation, and then you begin to work with their interests and begin to qualify them more specifically for the institution. Do you anticipate that you'll be doing, even if things return to normal fairly quickly, more digital communication than in-person communication in the fall?
Yeah, not only do we anticipate, I think we might also have to go back to some tried and true print communication. We're certainly going to be doing some more electronic communication and information sharing that way. But I think, there's been a move of late to try to steer away from print communication for some reasons. Um, but I think we might need to go back to some of that, just to put us top of mind on some students' radars, or to have that postcard that talks about some things that are important to us, so families can put it on the fridge and remember who we are.
You got it. Well, you alluded to testing a
Mhm.
few minutes ago, and with regard to search, but one of the things that I'm learning in my conversations with students who are rising seniors is that they're really panicked about tests. Tests have been canceled this spring. They don't know when they're going to be taking them again. Should I do another test prep? Is Hobart thinking about any accommodation, even if they're temporary, for students who may not be able to put together the test profile that they'd like to for the admission process?
Sure. This is one of the reasons that I am very grateful that we are a test optional institution, and have been for 14 years now.
Sure.
We've always been one of those places that has known that for certain students, these test scores are a really good indicator of their skills and abilities, and for others, it's a really bad indicator of their skills and abilities. And to know the difference is really important, to be able to understand, in this individual student's case, the test scores really don't help us too much. But for another student's case, it could be very, very helpful. And to allow students that choice and that flexibility is important. I also, in addition to having a senior at home, I have a sophomore at home. And so,
That's good for you, does it?
so she's really just starting to think about this stuff,
Yeah.
because she would be taking the PSATs in the fall as a junior. So it's just started looking at some of that stuff. And I guess to me, I always try to, and maybe naively, and a little too glass half full kind of way, I would hope that because students may not be able to take some of the tests they normally take in the spring, that they can take a step back and relax a little bit and focus on a college search that's more about them and their fit, and where they're going to be happy and where they'll thrive and excel, and worry less about where am I going to get admitted, what are my scores going to do for me.
Yeah.
And maybe by pushing that off for a couple of months, it might help broaden the net for them and help them look at some places that maybe they wouldn't look at because they were too worried about test scores. And then they'll have the opportunity to take these tests. And I'm one who says, look, take them once, take them twice, and then be done. Taking it a bunch more times rarely, if any, helps any student. So to me, if there's a blessing in all of this, I hope it means that some of the juniors out there can just focus on getting through the spring of their junior year, doing the coursework that they need to do, and excelling the best they can, and doing some college searching online, and finding some places that might be attractive to them, and not get so focused on the test score piece of it.
Good advice. When I was doing college admission, we were test optional as well, and I know it took a little while for our faculty to buy in, but once they did, it was really a lot of fun
Us too. Yeah.
to be able to look at young people without regard to the numbers, and I can sense that that's what's going on in your operation as well. Um, you mentioned at the outset of the conversation something about business as usual. Do you think we're ever going to see business as usual again in the college going process?
That's a good question. And look, I've been in this profession for 30 years now. And if you go back to when I started, I don't know that anybody would have considered, 4 years ago, business as usual. So things are constantly changing and evolving in the world, and consequently in our profession, as students are challenging themselves in more and more ways, and taking advantage of all these different opportunities that are available to them. I think any institution is really wise if they're constantly reevaluating their recruitment and selection process, and thinking that you've got to adapt and change as times change. So I guess, business as usual is a relative term. And I don't know that everything ever stays the same anyway. I was a history major in college, and every history professor and teacher in high school ever said the only thing that's constant is change. So we've got to be ready to roll with the punches and plan differently if we need to.
Well, and from challenge often can come opportunity as
That's right.
well. And was having a conversation with someone earlier in the week who was pointing out that as he with his staff were making changes that you just referenced, he said, write that down. We don't want to lose track of what we're thinking about now, because if we do pass through this difficult period, it would be smart for us to not lose track of some of those things that we've done.
You're absolutely right. We were talking about this just as a staff this morning as we were all gathering for a Zoom call, and we realized a lot of these sessions that we're doing virtually have value whether we were having people on campus or not. Let's not change this next year. Let's make sure to do those again,
Right.
and because you can reach there are plenty of students who are looking at us from all over the world who may not ordinarily be able to visit campus, and to have these resources available to them, whether they jump on the Zoom call or not, we'll post it on our website so people can see it later. It lives beyond just that meeting, and gives people some really valuable information and delivers it in ways that we hadn't been delivering it prior to this.
You've almost, I shouldn't say you, but I think inadvertently many have found a high touch opportunity here that can have a positive impact on the yield. Well, as we wrap up, John, is there anything? I'm thinking now about your sophomore daughter. Uh, what would you say to her or to others in her class who are looking at the future without any kind of sense of what's on the other side of the storm cloud right now? What do you say to a young person to give some hope and some direction?
That's a great question. We were just having that discussion at the dinner table the other night as she was getting a little tense, and maybe it's because her brother is a senior, and so they're all the college brochures floating around the kitchen table, and all the the old test prep books that are sitting there, and I think there was a moment where she got a little overwhelmed by it, and was thinking, wow, how am I gonna manage all this moving forward? And I think the thing to remember, the beauty of the American higher education system is there is a variety that is unmatched anywhere else in the world. There are opportunities for students all over this country that are absolutely incredible. And I think sometimes people focus on too narrow a swath of schools or places that they're familiar with or know from, either because they're in the newspaper all the time or playing sports on TV all the time. And I think sometimes students have to remember that they end up too focused on striving for one specific thing or one specific school or one ideal, when in fact I think students would be wise to take a step back and remember for a minute that they're pretty special and unique and cool just the way they are, and then go find a school that respects that and respects the choices that they've made in terms of their curriculum and what they choose to do outside of class in terms of sports and clubs and what their hobbies are, and then what their personality is and what they hope to get out of college.
Mhm.
And then go find schools that are going to respect that and enhance that and foster that and nurture that. And they'll be a much happier college student because of that. I'm amazed at the number of students who get so focused on trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Sometimes the obvious choice is the right one, and live your life, make smart choices. There are consequences for all these choices that you make, right? If you don't want to take certain classes, there are going to be certain colleges that just aren't, you're not going to be attractive in their pool.
Right.
But if they're so distasteful to you to take them in high school, they're probably going to be distasteful to you to take them in college too.
That's
So why would you want to go to a school that really wants you to do that, right? In other words, live your life, challenge yourself, certainly be the best that you can be, and then go find schools that are excited about that will consider themselves lucky to have you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It sounds like a well-defined, well-grounded, student-centered approach to the process. Now, before we sign off, I'm wondering if you would like to share any online information, a website URL for viewers who'd like to learn a little bit more about how they can discover Hobart.
Yeah, we are, I think maybe as a consequence of all this, We feel like our website's on steroids right now. We have ramped it up big time. So you probably can find out more about Hobart William Smith on our webpage than I might want you to.
Mhm.
But yeah, www.hws.edu is our main page, and you can link to the admission site right from there. We've got some really cool photos, videos, links to just about anything you'd want to see.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think sometimes gets lost in this that I would encourage students to do at any school, but certainly ours, is to go to the academics page, some version thereof at every school,
Mhm.
and look at the course catalog. Look at the listing of classes if there's an area of academic interest that is really important to you. If you were going to come to Hobart William Smith and you wanted to be a history major, go click on that department page and see who the faculty are, and see what classes are offered, and understand what the requirements are. Hey, you need to complete 12 courses in this department to complete the major. If there aren't 20 courses out there that are exciting to you, then maybe that's not a good fit, right? You should be able to find those things that are exciting to you as you flip through it. So it's one of those big opportunities, I think, of people having a little more time at home as they can do some more hunting that way and really learn some cool stuff.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for your insights and helping us understand better, the life as it currently exists at the Hobart and William Smith campuses. Let's hope for a bright and sunny future for everybody. But I appreciate the leadership you're providing, and for also for sharing your thoughts with us today. That'll be it for our conversation. I appreciate everybody checking in on our conversation with John. Be safe, and have a great day, everyone.